Originally,
All right, it's close enough to 4 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation to order. First order of business is the invocation. I ask Sherry Patillo to call us together.
Would you pray with me? Good and gracious God, we thank you for your presence and for your peace. We thank you for how you bless our country, how you bless our city, and how you bless each of us individually. Grant us wisdom always, and including this time together today. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sherry. Item 1 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. Any citizens with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the Economic Improvement Corporation. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items. Because the Opens Meeting Act requires an item to be posted on the agenda 72 hours before the meeting, visitors are asked to limit their presentations to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody for the Visitors and Citizens Forum today? Is that a hand? Did you want to speak?
I think I put it.
You good?
Thing up there. Well, I just want to, my name's Russell Kemp, and I'm with the Kerrville Tennis Association. I'm president of it. I just want to thank you for what you've done so far, and looking forward to the next 2 years, which is really, this is a two-part. It doesn't work one without the other. We've already got 5 USTA. That doesn't count school. That doesn't count things we do. 5 tournaments scheduled for this next year, which is a huge amount. And there will be more as we get these. We really want to look for D2 schools and maybe even a couple of D1s to come in and play at our places. And we want to have an economic boon. I think later on as you go forward, you're going to take pictures of the Riverwalk, but I think you're going to take pictures of that tennis thing for your brochures to get people to come and want to do business. And we want to be a profit to, in the Kerrville Tennis Association, the whole association, all 200 plus members, is very excited about this, and we want to thank you. We thank City Council, and we're just going to keep coming, so we know that you think we're here, and there's a lot of political and personal support behind this whole agenda. And if you ever have any questions, we have all sorts of people from Shriner College, from Coach Niffen, from myself, and other people who have years and years of experience on courts, and we'd like to be partners with y'all. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time and consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Russell.
You're
welcome.
We appreciate what you guys do too. So, all right, anybody else? All right, we'll move on to item number 2, the approval of the minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those in your packet. Are there any
Move
questions?
they be approved as written.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's carried unanimously. We're going to go on to the monthly reports, monthly financials.
these are your financial reports ending October 31st, and that will start on page 9 of your agenda package. In your operating fund, your beginning cash was $3,789,843. You had income of $266,541. Had expenditures of $281,086, leaving you an ending cash balance of $3,775,298. In the expenditures for this month, you had a one-time expense of the $180,000 that goes to KEDC. On page 10 is your budget. Shows your current month expense, your year-to-date, and your budget balances remaining. That gives you a little more detail on your operating fund. Page 11 gives you the analysis of the sales tax collected in the month of October. Compared to last year, we had a bump up of 16.29%, and that's due to a timing of when some sales tax was paid, but it is still good for the year-to-date. In the capital improvements fund, your beginning cash was $2,090,991, and you had no income or expense, so the cash balance remained the same. On page 13 is the breakout of y'all's current projects that y'all have. And again, you had no activity during the month, so the cash did not change. And at the bottom, it gives your ending cash balance available on the River Trail project of $974,706. Page 14, that has your cash and investments for the month and showing the interest earned. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
None from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, projects update.
Good afternoon. As you may have seen if you've driven by Holsworth and the sports complex, we've got dirt moving and walls going vertical and light poles going up, and we're making lots of good progress out there. So if there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
I was just curious, is it possible to get a walking tour
Absolutely.
arranged?
Yes.
So that I don't want to just drive up and.
Yes, I think the entire board had asked for that, and
Okay.
we need to get that scheduled.
Okay.
So we'll
I
connect
have
with you.
driven by, but I just
Yes,
haven't driven in.
absolutely. Well, now it's kind of dried up a little bit out there. We had some wet fall season, so now that it's dried up and we have nice cool days, it'll be much more
Perfect.
pleasant to be out there. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll get that scheduled for you
Great.
guys.
I'd like for you to do that, and pick a day that's convenient for you, and as many of us will make it if you'll just let us know. But
Sure.
I know personally I'd like to go out there and get a little better
Same
idea
here.
of what's
Yeah,
going on.
that'd be great.
Same
Absolutely.
here.
We'll get that scheduled for you guys.
Thank you, EA.
Absolutely.
Any questions? Okay, moving on to item 4. We have funding agreements with the City of Kerrville for the construction of the reclaimed water distribution infrastructure. Yeah, how do you want to do these? Do you want to do them individually?
Yes, sir. You will need to do
Public hearings on
3
each one.
separate public hearings, so you will
Okay.
need to open those. I'm happy to go ahead and brief the board in advance of the opening and closing those, or however you'd like to do it, sir.
Let's do it separately.
Yeah, well, let's just do them separately. So
Yes, sir.
just go ahead and start with the first, and we'll go from there.
Okay. The first funding agreement is for a total maximum of $1.5 million. It is a funding agreement specifically with the City of Kerrville and the Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation for the construction of reclaimed water distribution. It comes off of 534, basically goes through the golf course site, crosses Sidney Baker, and then connects over to Holsworth, goes down the median from Holsworth all the way over to the sports complex. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Well, I saw the footage, but having a visual, it helps.
Yes.
As far as exactly
Yes,
where it's
absolutely.
going.
And overall, the project right now, we've just completed 70% engineering, design engineering. So we are anticipating, we're working like gangbusters to try to get that wrapped up and get that out on the street here by the end of the month. Realizing we've got holidays and sometimes that kind of complicates bidding, but we're hoping that by mid-January we've got bids back. We're going to hold a pre-con right after the beginning of the year, and then hoping that we've got or able to have a construction award at the January 24th City Council meeting.
Any questions for EA?
Yep.
All right, Cheryl, help me now. I need to open a public hearing on it. So if I don't bang the gavel, I just call. All right, we're not going to open a public hearing at 4:09 for the funding agreement between the City of Kerrville for the construction of reclaimed water distribution for a maximum of $1.5 million. Is there anybody that'd like to speak during that public hearing? All right, then I will call that public hearing closed at 4:10. Any discussion? No. All right, then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the funding agreement as was presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the funding agreement as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion, Elaine, I didn't see.
I
Okay.
didn't, yeah.
Motion carried unanimously. All right, item 4B.
Back again. This 4B is a public hearing in consideration of a funding agreement for, in conjunction with the City of Kerrville and Schreiner University for the construction of a reclaimed distribution line, maximum total of $900,000. Essentially, this connects off of one of the existing wastewater treatment plant and the in-process constructed reuse pond, moving down, I guess, south and to the west to Schreiner University.
Questions? Okay, and I'll open a public hearing at 4:11 for any comments or discussion. Do we have anybody that'd like to speak regarding this matter? If there is no one, I'll close the public hearing at 4:11. Any questions for EA regarding this project? Yeah, I've just got one real quickly, and I understand the agreement we're funding, and the agreement is actually between Schreiner and the City of Kerrville. And I'm just learning in my old age to think in worst-case scenarios, and I think it applies to this one and the other funding agreement we're going to discuss. If we approve it and we build the lines, and either Schreiner or River Hill decides, we don't want to tie in, or we don't want to do the work needed to use those facilities, use that water, is there any recourse?
Mike, do you want to address some of the options that are in there?
Well, you know, it is an agreement between EIC, the city, and in this case, Schreiner.
Okay.
They will sign the contract.
Mm-hmm.
They have agreed, pursuant to this agreement, to take the water and, you know, improve their property such that they can take it. If they decide not to do it, you know, you'd have a breach of contract. We all know how, you know, litigation works and the risk there. One thing that you might, you know, if you're concerned about that, I don't think EA can speak to this. I haven't had any sort of communications with Schreiner or River Hill about these contracts. You know, one thing that you could do is, if you're concerned about that, if the EIC is concerned about that, is have them put up, you know, some sort of security. You know, kind of, you know, be a part of the game, if you were. That's the only thing I could think
Can't
of.
say I'm concerned
Short
about
of
it. I
that,
think it's both, you know, it's such an economic benefit to both of those organizations in the long run from a security of water standpoint. It was just a question that I had. I know that, again, I'm just learning to ask those questions.
Mhm. You know, it's a great question. And, you know, you can have these contracts, and they can be, you know, 1,000 pages, and they still, at the end of the day, one of the parties might not do what they're supposed to do. So there's always a risk when you're entering into these things. But I think, again, based on my understanding of Schreiner's reaction to this and negotiations and, you know, kind of their mindset is they'd like this in the ground and using it today. So they're ready for it. They want to use it.
I think some of the assurances are market assurances. You know, essentially you've got demand there for the athletic facilities and other elements that are utilizing that resource, and it's a resource that's less expensive than potable water, and it's also more reliable. And so, you know, I think it's more of a market assurance than something that's actually contractual.
So if you did decide to take some kind of deposit, I mean, you would never be whole with that deposit. You'd then require that deposit to be the total to be expended if you put the pipe in the ground. I mean, that would be unreasonable anyway. It hurt a little bit. It wouldn't hurt them a lot.
Right. That's
Yeah.
a great point.
So,
I mean, we still own the pipe, and
yeah.
so.
I mean, that's just one of the risks associated with doing this.
We never have any guarantee anytime we put a water pipe in the ground that the users are going to utilize it to the full extent that they anticipated. That's just one of the risks that we have within public infrastructure, and that's why we have public infrastructure.
Well, the agreement between those organizations, does it state a minimum amount of water that they'll buy every year?
I think EA can talk about this. I think within the letter of intent, which is not a binding agreement, but is what it is. It's a letter of intent. They have agreed to buy, or we've agreed to service them with, I forget the number, gallons for Schreiner versus River Hill, but presumably that's the number that they'd like every year.
It's more of an average maximum daily,
Right.
rather than a minimum threshold.
Yeah, I think we had a maximum cap, but not a minimum.
Correct.
Yeah, I know, like on Shriner's 250,000 gallons. I guess my question is, and it's really not the EIC's business, I guess it's between the agreement and the city, but if it's raining a lot, they don't have to buy that, is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I had.
And again, recognizing that, you know, quite a bit of the base operational costs in producing that water have already been had by treating it in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I have one question on an average usage. How long will it be before the city gets their money back, or they break even on this thing?
729 years.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, forever.
Forever.
But again, I think we also have to keep in mind that this is a side benefit of what we're doing.
Oh, sure.
You know, this is not the reason we're building reuse ponds. So, okay, anything else?
Well, one thing to note on that same is the lost revenue that you would have if they weren't able to
Yeah.
have the sporting events, and how do you calculate that?
Yep. Yeah. If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the funding agreement with the city of Kerrville and Shriner University for the construction of the reclaimed water distribution infrastructure at a maximum of $900,000.
I'll second.
Have a second?
Second.
Delane seconded
I
it,
haven't
sorry.
seconded
Oh,
one yet, so I just wanted to be on record somewhere. Well, I was here. So I'll second.
Okay.
It's my first second.
I got it.
Your first second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion's carried unanimously. We'll move on to item 4C.
I'm sorry. Public hearing, 4C is a public hearing consideration of funding agreement with the City of Kerrville and Southern Gulf Properties, commonly known as owning and operating River Hill Country Club, for the construction of reclaimed water distribution infrastructure of a maximum of $600,000. That ties off of part of an existing line, crosses the Guadalupe River, really comes up 173, and then cuts over to a pond that is proposed to be really rehabilitated and brought it back into service, that used to hold water in the past. It has not for some time now, but they're along Hole 4.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing at 4:17. Is there anybody that would like to make a question or comment regarding the funding agreement with the City of Kerrville and Southern Gulf Properties?
George Broody, 1616 Glen Road. I just got a couple of questions. You were asking about a few, but one, we keep calling it a utility, and I'm not really sure it is, but this is more like after it's outside the utility loop, but that's not really what you guys are questioning. I got two questions. One, I would suggest, and I would have done this for all three, but anyways, I would suggest sending them back till they get kind of cross the T's and dot the I's on this, because a couple of things have happened. One, the overall distribution line project had been sitting at $3 million, or less than $3 million as an estimate for the whole thing, for the 3 new customers that you're adding, until I noticed in the packet that you have a breakdown of it, and it's up to like $6 million for the same, actually for less lines. This is calling for 24,000 linear feet of lines, whereas the original project had 30,000 linear feet. So I would be asking that question as to what you're really funding, because the project is doubled in size prior to you guys getting this application originally. The other is more of a question to EIC, which is as I'm understanding y'all's budget, your annual budgets, you're going to essentially be doing deficit spending to cover this particular project for the next 2 years. I guess you're committing $1.5 million each year for the next 2, and you're dipping into reserves to do that. If you're going to dip into reserves, again, I would urge you to have the application cross the T's and dot the I's before you end up doing that. That's all.
Thank you. Any response, questions? Anybody else? Okay, then at 4:20, I'll close the public hearing on item 4C. And if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the funding agreement with the City of Kerrville and Southern Gulf Properties for construction of reclaimed water distribution infrastructure of a maximum of $600,000.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stafford. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, item 5. Application of the City of Kerrville for improvements to the tennis center in the amount of $1.5 million.
Good afternoon. This is the official application from the city for a project that we've been talking about with you guys for a couple of years now at the tennis center. I think you guys have seen this before, but essentially what we are looking to do is improve several things at the tennis center. We have some major drainage issues. We have parking issues. We have, as you know, some of the tennis courts have failure issues because they're asphalt courts, they're not concrete courts. We'll be addressing irrigation. We'll be addressing some of the things like fencing and landscaping, evaluating to see if we need to redo the kind of Band-Aid fix that we did recently when we resurfaced the courts, the asphalt courts. We'll be evaluating those. We'll be adding in ADA links to the different facilities among the campus. Currently, they're not in compliant as they are now. They're a little bit too narrow. Putting pads underneath the pavilions and the bleachers and doing an overall improvements to the facility. We'll be addressing the pro shop, addressing the pavilion, and looking to do that in our scope. If approved, this will go back to council for final approval, and then design phase, we'll set out an RFQ to select an engineer to work on this project, and of course we'll work with the KTA, the university, the ISD, and our other stakeholders in town to get their input. And at this point, I'll turn it back to you for any questions.
Okay. Questions?
Actually, this might have been in here. I did read it, but I don't recall sort of the timeline with regard to final, product.
We are looking to start fairly quickly as far as obtaining our engineer for it, and then we will work with the Tennis Pro and the organizations to make sure that we're not impacting any sort of construction schedule. But we're looking to anticipate bidding in summer and then hopefully start construction soon after that.
And then completion being estimated at when?
It just depends on the scope of the project that we're going to go after. It could be several months, it could be phased.
But the 2-year project, I mean, the funding over 2 years seems like the appropriate.
Correct. It'll most likely be phased to dovetail with the programming at the tennis center.
Ashley, are we expanding the number of courts in this?
No, we're not. We're just looking at evaluating the current courts and then looking at those original 6 to see if they need to go ahead and be updated with the concrete cap, post-tension cap right now. Those are the ones that are asphalt that we recently resurfaced with kind of the not sure on the guarantee on how long that was going to last.
Do we have the space to facilitate additional courts there?
That's something that we can look into. I'm not sure if we have a demand for that at this time.
It's been a
though.
long time since I looked at it. I didn't know if we did or not.
We have 14 courts as of now. And then the lower courts that are kind of near the middle school, we will look at getting some connectivity to those courts too, because those are kind of off on its own, and a lot of people don't realize that that's actually part of the complex.
Thank you.
Sure.
With regard to budget, is this a line item that was in our projected budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, it was.
Across 2 years.
Yeah, this isn't one of those actually referred to. This is an item that's been popping off on and off the or on the budget and then kind of pushed back for probably 4 years now.
Yes.
And they've been very patient with us, waiting for us to get it to the top of the budget, I guess, or at least what we'll deal with it. So, questions?
On page 58, you said that bidding is anticipated for summer of 2017, and the firm selection is anticipated for winter 2017. Is that when it would start?
I believe that's supposed to be 2016 with
Okay,
the
because that would be
the
a
firm
year from
selection.
now, and I'm thinking Russell would be disappointed.
The firm selection, winter being February, March of just
Okay.
upcoming.
Okay. got it. Okay, so February.
17. That would be right.
That's correct, yeah.
There's no other discussion?
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Mayor.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
This is on the record or something. Bonnie White, 402 Forest Ridge. This is a question for probably Ashley, maybe EA, Mr. Hoppy. But we talked about this before, as you remember, when we were doing the renovation project. There was funding that we could have applied for, through the state. And those courts that are on the school side are because the Parks and Rec Department, way back when they did the initial funding, said because it was partially on school property and partially on city property, they agreed to match some funding. So my question with all of that history is there a way that we could apply for any kind of state parks grants? And I know it has to be done in the beginning, so that's why I wanted to know before rather than later.
Russell might know that answer.
Good question.
State parks.
Well-
I would not know on state parks. USTA, though.
Uh-huh.
USTA has funding and it changes every single year. And they have specific things they want to do, like,
Mr. Kemp, I'm sorry, would you step up to the mic if you're going to respond?
Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
it's okay. That's why I'm here. USTA has different programs every single year, and sometimes they're very lucrative, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes it's getting kids 8 and under involved. Sometimes it's, and those are different type of courts and different types of balls and different types of things, and they fund for that as you go forward. But they have different funding programs every single year, and you just have to be involved with the USTA to know what are they going to do, and you can get funding from there. There's one offside, which don't get mad at me, but we would like new courts, some new courts like a center court. If you're going to have a show place and you're going to do it, you want a center court where the championship matches are going to be played, and there is room. If you look between here and here, there is room. But I also understood from the last time I had a meeting that property is not KISD property. That was done wrong. That's not KISD right here. It's not KISD property.
Can you tell me what you're referring to? I can't see what you're.
There's upper and lower courts.
All right, so you're speaking about the lower?
Lower courts. I think what I was told, that line changes and that's not KISD property. And if you look in there, there's parks. I mean, there are parks and there are trails that go around that they've done before. Right now, hiking trails right around there. And what I was told was I saw this original one, but I don't think that's KISD property anymore. I think it's the city's property, the lower courts, not the upper courts, if you look how it is. But there is room in the center between the bottom and the lower, and we also may want covered courts somewhere, which I know Malcolm doesn't want, but we would love to have covered courts so we can play when it's really hot and we can play when it's raining. If you have a tournament, you want to finish off the tournament. But those are things we'll talk about when they ask our opinion.
Okay.
But there is funding from USTA. And, everybody can't get everything they want. We know that. We're going to have a big meeting here in about 2 weeks for all the KTA members and say, what do you want? You're not going to get everything you want, but ask us, because we're going to bring your water to the city on what are the important things from that. And we'll be here, ask questions. There's so many people that have so much knowledge on courts and tournaments and years of knowledge on those things. Not really me comparatively, I just love the game. So they have it.
Okay.
Russell, I have a question while you're at the mic.
Yes, ma'am.
What have you, so you're talking about there is funding with USTA.
There is sometimes funding. I
Sometimes.
don't know what the
What
program
have
is.
you, okay, I was going to say, what have you seen in your experience
Sometimes
that they
there's-
typically fund, not maybe programmatically or scope?
Scope, they may say, for example, if you put out the lines and the new lines for kids stuff, we'll fund it up to this much. You put new courts out to this much, it may be this much. You do, it's X, sometimes it's $100,000, sometimes it's $15,000, but it's what their programs, and what they're doing is they're using that money like the federal government does to put it where they want things to go in the United States Tennis Association. If they want kids to start playing, they're going to fund that. If they want tournaments to happen, they're going to fund that. So some committee somewhere is meeting and saying, this is how we'd like to go. What are we going to use that money for? What are we going to use the foundation money for?
And so what do you know about turnaround time on applications for things like that?
See, I'm not the exact person to ask. I can find out
I'm
more.
just curious, this is
But sometimes it's delayed, but well, it's not any more delayed than a city. I mean, you'd go for I'm serious. You may take you 6 months or 9 months, but you'll get your money, if you go by their parameters and whatever they're trying to do in that specific year or 2-year time frame. They may have a 2-year time frame for it, not that. But they're trying to get their goals, and whatever their goals are is how they skew their funding. 2 years ago, it was about making sure that kids 8 and under started playing. So that's where the funding was.
Well, it seems prudent to me that we would delay the application until we could determine
It wouldn't.
the answer to the mayor's question
Well,
and
I'd like
and
to-
your question.
I'd like to
No,
ask a question
no.
to Mayor White then, because what my understanding is, the agreement, it's the city of Kerrville who would make that application and go forth. It doesn't truly affect the funding
You're
of
right.
this.
It's not here. No, it's not on this part. It's just something to think about, when we begin the whole process.
When
Yeah, and I
you do the
think-
process,
Yeah.
you skew it towards that to get the funding to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm saying. I think that is
It won't change the
council's.
funding.
Excuse me, go ahead.
It won't change the funding if
Yes.
you're going in there, if you're deciding. But we haven't decided, this is a sketch thing of what we might do.
We
It's not
understand.
actually
I get that.
what we will do. So if we find that there's funding and we can put it in a certain year, we can go after that funding for that. So funding it now is not going to change the outcome of the funding from the USTA.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more thing, just to kind of reiterate, when we go out for the RFQ, we'll be working with our engineering firm to evaluate the proposed scope of what we're looking at here, and also to evaluate the different funding sources too. This might actually be a project that goes beyond the 1.5. We're not really sure at this point, so we might have to come back at a later point and say, here's how we're going to phase this project to get what, a consensus of what everybody needs, and then we'll kind of go from there. But that's something that we will ask them to work on is, looking at the funding sources and seeing if there's grants and anything else that we can qualify for.
Okay.
Thank you. You okay with that?
That's all right.
Okay, no. Okay, any other discussion? I lost track. Did we have a motion?
No, not yet.
All right. Would anybody be so inclined to make a motion on this item?
Go ahead, Sherry.
I'm just trying to figure out how to word it, but yes. I move that we approve the $1.5 million for improvements to the tennis center as proposed.
Have a motion, to have a
Say it like
second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion's carried. Item 5B on the agenda, cancellation of the regular meeting in December and selection of a date for the regular January 2017 meeting. I know we've had an email that go out about that. I think we're in pretty much agreement that we will not meet in the month of December. So we have the 2 dates of January 9th and January 17th. The 9th is a Monday and the 17th is a Tuesday. Is that correct? It'd be the day following our normal meeting. Any comments or preferences?
I think Tuesday works better for some of us.
I'm sorry, what?
I think Tuesday works better for some of us because there's a conflict on that
We
Monday.
got a Monday, we have a conflict on that Monday. We have another board, Delane and I, and Paul.
Yeah, and I think that's a holiday actually, isn't it? That's why we're postponing
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So you
17th.
prefer
I prefer the 17th.
Tuesday the 17th over Monday the 9th?
Yes.
Yes.
If it's okay with everyone else.
Okay.
You want me to-
Cheryl, do I have to have a motion for that? All right, I'll have entertain a motion that we change our regular meeting in January. We'll cancel the December meeting and move the regular meeting in January to the 17th.
I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's carried. Yeah, I believe we have an item for executive session. Is that correct?
Not today, sir.
Not today?
No update, unless you guys have any questions that we need to go into.
Does anybody want to go to executive session to have any discussion?
Not me.
Nay.
Any other items that we need to discuss, staff, or future agendas? Anybody want to instruct staff for anything on future agendas?
I was at Grape Juice the other day, and I was talking to Patrick Wilft about the garage across the street, and it's probably in my stack of papers, but I wouldn't mind getting an update on where we are with the downtown streetscape.
Okay. Can we have that at our
Future.
January meeting then, if you'll update us?
Just to bring me up to speed on, thank you.
That's a good question. If there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting at 4:36.
Great. Well,
Good job on that.
we get a